Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. My name is So. For today's video, I am going to be doing my favourite books of 2023. Now, this is there are some on here that I did give 5 stars, and there are some on here that I rated 4 stars, but they're probably more like 4.5, 4.75. Books that I just like really enjoyed during this year. But that being said, I only read 31 books because I did have a massive reading slump. My nan died in the summer. I actually cannot remember which month, which is really bad of me. But from then till probably like a week ago, and today is New Year's Eve, so probably like a week ago, I had a massive reading slump. I wanted to read so bad, but every time I picked a book up, it just wasn't resonating with me. I couldn't make the words stick, and I just had to put it down until I started listening to audiobooks on the way home again, and something just clicked, and audiobooks have been the way forward for me recently. So that being said, I do have a bunch that are my favourite, or are my favourites of what I did read. Now, I'm not saying 31 books is not a good amount. I just personally wanted to do a lot more, and I was disappointed that I only read that much. You can read however many books you want in a year. That is completely down to you. You're all valid readers no matter how many you read. I'm definitely more of a quality over quantity person, but I did want to reach a better goal this year. But life didn't pan out that way. So I'm just gonna get into it. None of these books are in any particular order. I will tell you if they were 5 stars. So the first one on the pile, I do have some that I don't have physically as well, is Zodiac Academy. Now, I debated putting this one on this list because so many people were not a big fan of this book. But I had such a fun time reading it. It was the first book that I read in 2023, and it really set me off for such a good reading month in January. I read so many of my 31 books in January because this just put me in such a good reading mood. So for that, I am forever grateful to this book. And you know what? It's not perfect writing. It's not perfect like anything really, but I had a really good time reading it. I enjoyed the magic system. I'm intrigued. I want to carry on the series, and for me that was enough for it to make it onto this list. Next up we have Diary of Blood by S.T. Gibson. I loved this book. I didn't give it a 5. I think I gave it a 4, but for me a 4 is still a pretty good rating. Even a 3 is good rating. The only time I give bad ratings, like the ones that mean I don't like the book, are like the 1s and the 2s. 3 is still a good book, but it just means it was a bit average for me. 4 is I really liked it, but it didn't quite hit that spot, and then 5 are the ones that just hit it on the head. And this was close, but unfortunately it didn't quite make it on there. But this follows a wife of Dracula who is not named, but it's very heavily implied, and it is like a love letter to Dracula. That is literally how I describe it. This was the first time I had read a book that was written in this type of lyrical writing style, and I just found it so like poetic, and I just really loved it. I also loved that, okay, I don't love that I've put the dust cover on upside down. What I was gonna say is I also love that some of the chapters are literally like this long, because that is just our main character writing to Dracula, and that is how she felt at that moment. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I have seen some people that didn't like it because of the way it was written, and I can completely understand that. It is a very different writing style, but I was fully into it. Like, I think I read it in like one sitting because I just couldn't put it down. When I did try and put it down, all I was thinking about was this book. So yeah, I really enjoyed that one. Another book that I thoroughly enjoyed was The Maid by Nita Prose. It follows a maid who is on the spectrum, or it's not said that she's on the spectrum, but it's kind of implied, and you can kind of get the gist. I have siblings that are on the spectrum, so I kind of get it. And she is a maid. She really values her job. She puts her all into her job. She loves nothing more than her job. And one day, one of the guests is murdered, and she becomes heavily involved in this murder mystery, and it was just so good. I listened to the audiobook. I really loved it. It actually put me in the mood for thrillers, and there is a second book in the series series, but that one wasn't available on Scribd, so I couldn't listen to it. But as soon as I can listen to the second book, I will definitely be doing it, because I absolutely loved our main character and how she was, how like her mannerisms and like little quirks. It was such a fun book to listen to. On the topic of audiobooks, Woman in Me by Britney Spears was phenomenal. I got into memoirs by reading I'm Glad My Mum Died by Janet McCurdy and really enjoyed that book last year. Britney's one was the one for me this year. There's not really a lot to say because it's just following her life, but I cannot believe that so many of these things were happening to her for so long and nobody even tried to help her. That is insane to me, but I really enjoyed listening to it. Even though it wasn't narrated by Britney herself, I do understand that the topics were probably really hard to talk about, and so I can appreciate that she got someone else to do it for her. Next up is one of my more recent reads, and honestly probably one that everyone is sick of hearing about, but Divine Rivals. I got it in a fairy loot box, and when I opened it I wasn't totally blown away by I was blown away by the design. Like, it's a beautiful book, but the description didn't really have me like in any feeling any sort of way. I wasn't blown away, but then everyone wouldn't stop talking about it, and I was like, okay, there must be something in this book that is making everyone obsessed with it. So once I'd finished Britney, I started listening to this on the way home from work every day, and also reading it like physically along with the audiobook, and oh my gosh, this is like a new genre of fantasy for me, and I think it might be a new favourite as well. It follows our two main characters who are basically separated by the war. They start off as rivals and then they end up, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but there is a war of gods on Earth and people go and fight for the gods, but there's still magic like in certain areas of the world that were left by gods many years ago, and our characters have magical typewriters and they exchange letters via these magical typewriters, and then a love story unfolds. There's like a hidden identity type thing, and yeah, I ate this book up. I am so excited to read Ruthless Vows next month. I will be getting the fairy version, hopefully, fingers crossed, when it comes out, because I couldn't stop thinking about this book for ages. I really couldn't. And the audiobook was so British as well, which I really appreciate. That one got like a 4.5. Next up was another one that I wasn't sure was going to make the list, because honestly, I still don't know how I feel about it. I read Bunny by Mona Award. This was my first Mona Award book, and I read it because I watch Chloe from, is her channel called Chloe Bunny now, and she is obsessed with this book, and the way she described it just made it sound like a fever dream. So I was like, you know what, maybe I'll like a little bit of weird, and I did actually annotate it and I did thoroughly enjoy it. I'm still not 100% sure that I even know that I even get the gist of the book, but I had such a good time reading it. Most of the time I was like, what the F? But I think that's what you're meant to feel. I think it really is like a fever dream in a book, and I'm definitely gonna reread it one day and use a different color coding system just to see if I pick up on more things and understand it like a little bit better. But I remember I picked it up once last year, so 2022, and I read the first chapter and I was like, what is going on? And then I ended up putting it back down. Then when I re-picked it up, I was like, I'm gonna do it, and I had such a good time. This is definitely a 4. It doesn't go above a 4 because there wasn't that like wow factor for me, but I did thoroughly enjoy it, and it did make me want to carry on with Mona's work, so that's exciting. Another book which was a 5 stars and should come as no surprise was Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. My edition is actually downstairs, and to be honest, I can't be bothered to go down there, so I'll put a little picture here, but I'm sure you all know what it looks like. I ate that book up. I was laughing out loud, which is not something that I do often for books. I was laughing out loud, I was crying, I was heartbroken, I was in love. I just really loved Fourth Wing, and I haven't started Iron Flame yet, but that will be one that I plan to continue into 2024. I just wasn't in the mood. I feel like Iron Flame is going to be more plot heavy and more political on the fantasy elements, so I just wasn't ready for that yet, but I'm definitely excited for when I am ready for it. I loved the romance, loved the characters, loved the use of dragons, and yeah, I just loved everything about that book. If we could have more dragon books like that, that'd be great. We then have Seven Husbands by Evelyn Hugo.
It was at this moment he knew. He fucked up.
First of all, thank you, Annie, if you're even watching this video. I doubt you are, but if you are, thank you, because you told me to read this book for so long, and then I eventually did, and I was hooked. I was actually hooked. I kind of felt similar to how I felt when I read Verity by Colleen Hoover, because that book had me in a chokehold. This book I literally could not put down. Like, everyone was hyping about it and I was like, is it really that good though? Because I don't read a lot of like normal fiction. Like, I don't know if you would call this contemporary fiction, but I don't really read much of this type of fiction. I ate it up. I don't think I would read like a lot of this type, but Taylor Jenkins Reid just does it so well. And I then continued on to Daisy Jones and the Six. I really enjoyed that as well. This one definitely tops that one for me, and I have like a whole bunch more of her books now because I just love her writing style. I find it so easy to read, so fast paced. I'm excited to be a Taylor Jenkins Reid girly now. If you haven't read this and people are telling you to read it, just read it. Just read it. I took the bite and now I'm obsessed. And then lastly, probably one of my favorites, I think I did give this one 5 stars, is Heir of Fire by, I don't even know why I looked as if I didn't know, Heir of Fire by Sarah J. Maas. This year was when I started my Throne of Glass journey because I've read ACOTAR twice now. I'm all caught up on Crescent City except for the one that comes out next month, and I did forget when I went into my reading slump, but I did actually start Throne of Glass so that I could finish it by the time the last Crescent City book comes out. Now I'm a little bit stretched for time because this is the last one I've read, which is only the 3rd one, and I've still got 4 more books to read. So I don't think that's going to happen. I might have to put off reading House of Flame and Shadows until I am caught up, or waiting to see if there is elements from the Throne of Glass series in House of Flame and Shadow that I would need to know before I read it, if that makes sense. Because that was the whole reason, because there is like crossovers and people are suspecting that Throne of Glass will make its crossover into House of Flame and Shadow. So, but this one, I mean, I was enjoying the Throne of Glass series anyway, and I read Assassin's Blade, loved it. Read Throne of Glass, I liked it, but it wasn't my fave. I read Crown of Midnight, really enjoyed it, wasn't my fave. Read this one. Now this to me is where it gets really, really good. Like, I'm excited. I was excited for the next 4 books after reading this one. This is where the plot really like sits in, where the potential romance start. I mean, there is romance like sprinkled throughout, but I am a romantic girl. And I found out that Throne of Glass is not a high romance series, which almost put me off. But I know that there is romance in it, so I will continue. Yeah, this one really set me into the Throne of Glass series. Like, I'm all for it after this one. This was so good. So good. So yeah, this one did get 5 stars from me. But I just haven't made it on to the next one because I read this and then went into a reader slump, because that's how I do. Yeah, so those were my favourite books out of what I read this year. Please let me know what your favourites were, or let me know what you didn't really like. I want to hear the gossip, you know? Give me the tea. Give me the 411. So, this is me back to my YouTube channel, finally, and hopefully I will give you very regular updates and reading videos, etc, etc. So, if you like this video, please give me a big thumbs up as always. It really, really helps. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button before you leave so you don't miss my next video, which will hopefully be super, super soon. I hope you all have a lovely entrance into 2024, and I'm excited to be reading with you all. Bye, guys!